right, so you're just joining us. Thank you so much for joining. We are here with our first wild card match. This is between Jacob Baugh and Gerry Thompson. Jacob Baugh having to win yesterday to make it into day two. For Gerry, it was a real up and down affair. He lost all his legacy matches.
It was more of a down and up affair.
Down and up, yeah. And then proceeded to go 4-0 and win all of his modern matches, leaving out just about 500 on day one.
Yeah.
Which is good enough to place him into the wild card round here on Sunday.
Yeah, ended up picking a pretty solid deck for Legacy, but ending up in a pod that was very detrimental to that choice.
Yeah, and these players actually played yesterday in Legacy. Gerry was playing Grixis Control, Jacob Baugh on lands. That one went in Baugh's favor.
Gerry got wastelanded a lot in that match.
It was actually the first match of the day for these two players. Baugh, very unhappy with how he played during the match, said he had quite a few errors, but the matchup's just strong enough that the deck wouldn't let him lose.
Mm-hmm.
Game one, though, Baugh, as the 8 seed, he'll be on the play. Starts with Vessel of Nascency. For Gerry Thompson, it's Expedition Envoy. And this is the thing where you realize this is a very different deck than something like White-Blue Flash.
Right, and for Gerry, sometimes the mana base can be uncooperative in these two-color human decks with these allied lands. Prairie Stream, Port Town, they have a tendency to enter the battlefield tapped some percentage of the time, but Gerry here is able to present a 1-drop on turn 1.
It's very powerful. For Baugh, he just fixes his mana up and leaves up Vessel. He'll go down to 18 from Expedition Envoy, and Gerry will add Smuggler's Copter to the table.
This is an excellent start for Thompson.
Baugh will try to get things set up. A Vessel of Nascency will find him the choice of Emrakul, Aetherworks Marvel, and a basic forest.
Yeah, if he takes the Marvel, unclear if he already has a Marvel in hand, he's kind of on pace to have a potential turn 5 activation, though Gerry is applying significant pressure and could start untapping with some kind of counter magic disruption that could make that just not good enough.
Absolutely. Jacob does still take the Marvels to go to his third turn. He does not have any energy yet, though. Maybe looking for something like a Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot or a Harnessed Lightning here.
Right. Though if he has a Harnessed Lightning, it's a good chance that he just wants to take down this Smuggler's Copter. The card's very significant for Thompson.
Yeah, it's interesting. In this match, a lot of times Harnessed Lightning has to spend all of its energy to kill a creature. Now, in this matchup, Gerry has a lot of cards like Expedition Envoy, where Baugh could kill and even get some energy left over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the reason that you play Harness Lightning, obviously, it can be plus energy, but it's really that modality, the ability to be a Doomblade effect that makes it playable. So sometimes you have to take down a Smuggler's Copter, but it's an acceptable cost.
Jacob will keep going for lands, though. It's a copy of Traverse the Ulfenwald. And it'll find Ishkana Graph Widow. Yeah, actually, he already has Delirium here on turn 3, thanks to the Vessel of Nascency.
All right, this would definitely be a strong play if he's able to make land drops up to turn 5. Kind of ignore the energy for now and then try to set up the Marvel.
I was going to say, you're curving Marvel into Ishkana. It's not really making the energy you'd want, but maybe it doesn't matter. Aether Hub from Baugh will net him his first energy. And he's actually playing a much more mid-range game. In his hand also has his main deck copy of Sigarda Heron's Grace.
Sigarda is a very large body against Gerry's deck. He's presenting a lot of creatures that are significantly smaller than a 4/5. This deck does have 4 Declaration in Stone that could potentially deal with that, and 3 copies of Always Watching. Those matter more against Ishkana in terms of making his creatures comparably large, but a couple copies can put him on pace with Sigarda.
We go back over to Thompson's third turn. He's got Baugh down to 18. He does have one of his 2 main deck copies of Revolutionary Rebuff, however. And since he just saw Jacob get an Ishkana, it'll be interesting to see how Gerry plays that one.
So Gerry's actually got a lot of decisions that he's facing on this turn. He wants to crew the Copter because obviously looting is great. However, Baugh has red and a colorless up. He does not want to get Harnessed Lightning. So then there's some incentive to cast a creature and crew up the Copter instead of just using the Expedition Envoy he already controls.
Right.
If he casts a creature, he's taking down Spell Queller mana. He knows that Baugh has an Aetherworks Marvel.
And yeah, it looks like that Spell Queller is just going to be the priority. He swings Expedition Envoy, not even crewing the Copter to put Baugh down to 16. And then makes 2 creatures and a Prairie Stream. So this is some really neat sequencing.
Yeah, so I like here, he respected the Harnessed Lightning and said, you know what, you've got 1 energy. I can race a Marvel here.
And there is the Harness Lightning. So Jacob Baugh is going to shoot down Town Gossipmonger and net 2 energy. So this play from Gerry, post-combat creatures that could crew the Smuggler's Copter, it really did pay off.
Right. Now on the next turn, say Baugh spends this turn casting Marvel, that's fine. Gerry can crew the Copter on the next turn, get that loot, continue applying pressure, and then he'll have this rebuff in hand to deal with the Ishkana. Baugh has to present something that can generate energy. If he just casts, say, Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot, Gerry has that Spell Queller, and he can hit that.
Fourth land from Jacob Baugh. You're right, though. There is a Revolutionary Rebuff and Spell Queller in Gerry's hand, so it seems like the game plan was to get out ahead on the board and then use those counter spells to maintain board presence. 3 energy, though, from Baugh. His hand has, looks like Chandra, Torch of Defiance, Aetherworks Marvel, Ishkana Graph Widow, Sigarda Heron's Grace, and second Aetherworks Marvel. So he has 5 cards that are all in the 4 or 5 mana slot.
Chandra is really awkward on this board because you would want to use it as a removal spell immediately, and Gerry can use his Thraben Inspector to clean up the Chandra. It does buy you some time, though.
Yeah, that's what Jacob's going to play. He's going to play Chandra, -3 her, to shoot down the Expedition Envoy. It does mean that Gerry will get to attack Chandra off the board with Thraben Inspector or Smuggler's Copter, but it's taking a lot of his pressure away. And that's what Gerry will do. Cruise Smuggler's Copter. He draws and discards. It's going to be a basic island. Chandra is down. And Gerry will add another Expedition Envoy to the table, still leaving up that Spell Queller.
Yeah, and Baugh on the previous turn, given that he can't produce energy at any kind of guaranteed rate, has prioritized just casting and resolving these 5 drops. Gerry has a little bit of tools against that. He has the rebuff, but when the second one comes down, Jerry's going to rely on already being significantly ahead on board, which means he's going to need 1 or 2 more creatures. He's not doing too much just yet.
Yeah, he's representing an attack for 5. We see Jacob Baugh attempt Ishkana. Yeah, Gerry has to call it, though. Revolutionary Rebuff is going to be the play. Ishkana does not resolve. We go back to Thompson. And a big draw. It's a copy of Always Watching.
That's excellent here. That allows him to turn up his clock. You have to be concerned that Baugh might have a second copy of Ishkana.
Right, Spell Queller doesn't work there. What Gerry Thompson will do is crew Smuggler's Copter, attack with Copter and Envoy for 5, draw and discard. Draws a land, most likely puts that into the bin. Puts Baugh down to 11. And we go back over to Jacob Baugh. Draws. It's a copy of Attune with Aether. And he'll go ahead and attune here. We'll see if there's enough to get the Spell Queller. It is not. Baugh goes up to 5 energy.
Yeah, with Baugh having just face-up Aetherworks Marvel in his hand, not surprising to see Gerry pass on this one. Yeah, Baugh already has all of his colors, given that Aether Hub.
And Sigarda is the play from Baugh, and this is some really great timing by the Naya Aetherworks player.
Yeah, Gerry can't Spell Queller that one. He's already used his Revolutionary Rebuff.
Yeah, and this card is going to be very powerful on the board. The 4/5 Sigarda both gives Jacob hexproof and his humans hexproof. For 2 mana, he can exile a card from his graveyard to get a 1/1 white human soldier. He's got plenty of cards in his graveyard for this.
It's decision time for Thompson again. He can crack his clue and try to find his second copy of Revolutionary Rebuff, or he can commit Spell Queller and just try to race this Sigarda. If he just casts Spell Queller, goes to his turn, cast Always Watching, he can chip in, do a considerable amount of damage. He has to throw something away in combat. And then he has to be worried about a stream of ground blockers, not to mention the fact that the Sigarda is large enough to eat any of his flyers in combat.
This is just the good play here by Jacob, though, to not ever give Gerry an opportunity to convert a Spell Queller.
Right. And it's also true that just given the makeup of his hand, the fact that he does not have a lot of energy producers, his 5 drops just mattered more than the Marvel as well.
Looks like Gerry decides to crack the clue, maybe hoping to hit a Revolutionary Rebuff or a Declaration in Stone. He hits neither, though. He draws into a basic Plains. And now we go back to Gerry's 5th turn. Draws again. It's another basic plains. No help and no answer for the Sigarda.
And given that he didn't cast a Spell Queller, he doesn't have a particularly good attack on this turn. He also is yet unable to cast Always Watching and Spell Queller on the same turn.
Land 5 from Thompson. And this is dicey now. As to what he actually wants to do here. If he lets Jacob untap with the Sigarda, things are going to get a lot worse.
It becomes problematic. Attacking into it right now, though, would be extremely unprofitable. He has a 2-1, a 1-2, and or a Smuggler's Copter. He can maybe chip in for 2 damage on this turn. It just doesn't incentivize him to attack at all.
Yeah,
he wants to wait until he can find that declaration.
Comes to the same conclusion. He will pass back to Baugh, who draws a copy of Nahiri the Harbinger for the turn. So now Baugh untaps with a hand of 2 Marvels and a Harbinger. They're all 4-drops. They all get spell quelled. He has the option to try for either of them or to simply make 1/1s with his Angel.
Yeah, the 1/1s definitely provide him some blockers on the ground. Even if you cast one of these 4s, you can still make a 1/1, given that Thompson doesn't have that lock going on. I like just jamming 4-drops and making 1/1 a turn.
It's going to be Aetherworks Marvel from Baugh. Gerry will spell quell it, and Jacob passes the turn.
Yeah, and now if Gerry draws Declaration and has a line to get aggressive, then Nahiri would be... Well, actually, you can't exile a Spell Queller if it's Vigilant if Gerry has Always Watching. But theoretically, if Gerry just has Declaration, Baugh could leverage the Nahiri that way.
Gerry draws to the turn, and it's a copy of Town Gossip Monger.
It's a bit worse than Thraben Inspector here.
Maybe that Gerry is erasing now. He'll cast Always Watching. His creatures get +1/+1 and Vigilance. Crew the Smuggler's Copter with Spell Queller and attack with the team. Here's a draw and a discard. It's another copy of Always Watching. That could be really good.
So the way that this played out, Gerry has tapped his Spell Queller, which means that Baugh could potentially leverage that Nahiri to exile it, get that Marvel back.
Yeah, he tapped it because he used it to crew the Smuggler's Copter, which makes sense, but it leaves him open to Nahiri.
It was his worst attacker, because if that one gets eaten in combat by Sigarda, well, it's gone, and then Baugh has an Aetherworks Marvel. Gerry, of course, not aware that Baugh had Nahiri in hand.
Jacob is at 11, surveying his options. On the board, it looks fine for Jacob to go ahead and kill any of these creatures. He'll put Sigarda in front of the Smuggler's Copter and chump block the Expedition Envoy. That's going to work. Jacob takes 2, goes to 9. Gerry replaces his downed creature with a Town Gossip Monger, and we're back to Jacob Baugh. Draws a basic forest. And I think you're absolutely right. Here's Nahiri. Exiling away the tapped Spell Queller. Jacob will get a Planeswalker. He'll get his Marvel back. And he will get to pass.
And he's just 1 energy shy of spinning that as of now.
Right, and the human chump blocking will do that. So Gerry's got about 1 turn here to draw something like Declaration in Stone. Can he do it? We know going into the turn he had an Always Watching. And I think it might have been Thalia's Lieutenant that he picked up next to it.
Lieutenant can make his creatures quite large.
Yeah, that's a lot of anthems in one spot.
You probably just jam both, shove, and find out what happens.
That looks like the play. He's going to jam both. So all his creatures now getting +3/+3. So we're looking at a 4/5 Inspector, a 5/4 Envoy, possibility of a 7/8 Gossip Monger. And Jacob's only at 9.
And Jacob only has the mana to make 1 human to chump block here.
Yeah, now when it chump blocks, that'll be the 6th energy that Jacob's looking for.
Right. Currently, the Thraben Inspector is a 4/5, so that's a free block for the Sigarda, though Jacob does have to be concerned about his life total. He is at 9, and, when it comes to spinning Marvel, you're not really guaranteed to find something. It's just 6 cards.
So Jacob will make a human. And the difficult thing here is that there's not a creature that Sigarda can kill without her also dying.
Right. She either bounces or she trades. Jacob very likely is going to want to spend his mana on the following turn, making a bunch of humans to chump block, so he really wants to keep that Sigarda around. Notably on the following turn, actually, if Jerry's attacking Nahiri, Jacob wouldn't be able to exile an Always Watching.
Right.
But yeah, he would definitely want to leverage the Nahiri next turn to make these creatures smaller so that his Sigarda has better blocks.
Well, it looks like he will have the option. Jerry sent all the attackers at Baugh. Looks like Baugh bounces the 4/5s off each other. Looks like he wants to chump block the Envoy. And will take damage off the Gossip Monger. And Jerry actually doesn't even flip the Gossip Monger.
Yeah, you'd have to tap it, right?
Fair enough. He doesn't want anything tapped for Nahiri.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually just being able to use a removal spell is more impactful here than exiling the Always Watching.
And now here's a Marvel from Baugh. It's his first activation of the namesake card. You see, finds Ishkana Graphido. Okay.
That's a very big hit here for Baugh.
It gets 3 Spiderlings along with it. And this is going to be a lot of blockers for Baugh as we go back to his next turn.
Right, but he's got the 3 spiders, potentially 3 more humans now. He's untapping 7 mana. If he has an 8th land, he could make 4 more humans.
Yeah, 7 lands in play, perhaps an 8th in hand as well. The other card, we know he has an Aetherworks Marvel in hand. Nahiri will plus. Looks like he's going to discard and draw. Discards that second copy of Marvel. Right, a lot of cards in the graveyard for Sigarda.
Yep. Tons of blockers for Baugh, and now as soon as he's able to produce an Emrakul, he'll be able to just devour Jerry's board.
And looks like Baugh continues to develop his board. It's Emrakul, the Promised End. He has enough mana. You see tap 6, 7 card types in the graveyard. He's going to control Jerry's next turn, and this is a big, big exchange for Jacob Baugh.
Yeah, finding the Ishkana off of the Marvel is definitely big. You know, he'll have a lot of chump blockers even if he didn't have Emrakul, but then he does have Emrakul. Suddenly, Jerry is just going to make a bunch of attacks. You know, his only way to potentially win this game was getting in some chip shots, and that's just not going to happen with this volume of chump blockers. And now that the Emrakul forces them to just die in combat, it's certainly not going to happen.
So Jerry's whole team is going to attack. Emrakul will block the Gossip Monger. Sigarda and the Spider Token will block the 4/5, so Spider Token will trade with the Inspector. Expedition Envoy, that's a 5/4. So it looks like it's going to be double blocked by a Spider Token and Ishkana, and Jacob is going to order those in the wrong way. So Jerry will lose his board, and looks like he'll just be left with a copy of Thalia's Lieutenant. Decides to go back and chump block the Lieutenant, or the Rabble, and then kill the Lieutenant.
See, the thing I like about this play, and why Baugh is making this decision to reorder, is the Rabble just has to attack on Jerry's next turn. So he'll get to eat that one with the Emrakul next turn, regardless. He'll just use that Reflector Mage to say bounce a Spider, maybe even bounce his Ishkana.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. So it looks like he trades 1 Spiderling for 3 of Jerry's creatures.
It's a favorable exchange.
Let's make that 2 Spiderlings, but still a great turn for Baugh.
Picks up a couple energy as his spiders die.
Cast Jerry's Reflector Mage. Bouncing the Ishkana back to his hand. Well, that seems great.
Yep, and now be 17 flying power on the battlefield for Baugh. Thompson still at 20, but it does not take long to close the game from here.
Interesting about Reflector Mage with an Emrakul turn. That creature's owner can't cast spells with the same name as that creature until your next turn. So if on an Emrakul turn you play your opponent, make your opponent play a Reflector Mage, as Jacob did on the Ishkana, it doesn't really have that secondary effect. On Jacob's next turn, he can cast Ishkana again because Jerry has had another turn.
Yep. One of many reasons to love Emrakul.
Well, now Gerry draws another Reflector Mage for the turn. This time he reflects Emrakul back into Baugh's hand.
So that removes the ability for Baugh to eat the Incited Rabble here, though Gerry's still not able to make inroads on Baugh's life total. Not to mention that Baugh now has an Emrakul. He can't cast that one on this turn because Gerry has not taken another turn, but he has the Ishkana to produce more chump blockers.
Draw from Jacob is another Aetherworks Marvel. He will use Nahiri to exile away one of the Always Watchings. This is something you said was going to be very important for stabilizing.
And that now it makes it so that Gerry's attacks are not bouncing off of Sigarda, or the Angel just starts killing them.
And he will recast that Ishkana that he forced Gerry to reflect. So it is once again 11 toughness worth of spiders. Jacob staying put at 5 life. Leaves up 2 for Sigarda and says go.
This is more than enough chump blockers to handle a Declaration in Stone from Gerry.
Yeah, well, especially between Sigarda and Ishkana, they have different names. Gerry will play and F3 Inspector, crack the clue.
Yeah, so the Incited Rabble will have to attack here. Currently has 4 power, but I expect Baugh to just throw a spider in the way.
Yeah, currently, yeah, so it's a 4-5. Can pump up to a 5-5.
Mm-hmm. No reason to throw away Ishkana or Sigarda.
Yeah, you can still put a spider in front of it. I suppose we could see a board where Gerry starts trading, but Jacob would trade away Ishkana with the Reflector Mage. On our backup match, Caleb Shear, a winner, game 1 against Liam Lonergan. That is our lone vehicles player in Lonergan playing against Caleb's Aetherworks Marvel deck.
All right. Gerry did pick up Declaration. He's been thinking about how he wants to leverage that, making sure that there's no way that he could really punch through here. Because now that he cast a Declaration, even if he hits the Spiderling, something the Rabble doesn't have the mana to actually eat either of the 5-drops in combat.
Looks like he chooses to use Declaration in Stone on Sigarda. In response, Jacob will make a human, but then he loses his Angel. Gerry's going to swing the team.
Yeah. Sigarda's a 4-power creature, so it could eat the Reflector Mages in combat, where the Ishkana can't do that alone. Not to mention that it generates more value down the line. He's saying that all the creatures are attacking Jacob, not Nahiri.
All right. Gerry continuing to send all the damage at Jacob Baugh, ignoring his Planeswalkers. So the Rabble is actually a 4-5, not a 5-5. Gerry does not have the mana to pump it, so that means it's pretty safe for Ishkana to get in the way.
Yeah, though combining Ishkana with any 1-power creature allows him to eat the Reflector Mage in combat, and then chumping with the Spiderling doesn't really cost him too much. Going into his next turn, he gets to cast Emrakul again.
Yeah, and that's going to look like those are going to be the blocks. He has a chump block on a Reflector Mage. Ishkana will bounce off, and a soldier token will take down a mage.
Mm-hmm. And now Baugh's back up to 6 energy.
Oh yeah, he did lose 3 creatures that combat. We'll see. Yeah, he'll spin Aetherworks Marvel again on end step. 6 more cards. See what he gets.
Could be anything. And what I mean by that is it could be anything, and it would be good enough to win this game from this point.
Yeah, Jacob really pulling away. This next turn he'll get to play that Emrakul again. It looks like this Marvel actually might be hitting Servant of the Conduit.
That sounds like anything. Book it. That makes 2 energy. cards.
Oh, there is the option of Emrakul in here. But I guess he's already got one in his hand. You don't need two.
It's legendary.
And it is going to be Servant of the Conduit. Okay, a little underwhelming. A 2/2 for 2 that brings 2 energy along with it. That's what's found off the Aetherworks Marvel. But it may just be enough. We go back to Jacob Baugh. He's still at 5.
Yeah, he's just got more than enough stuff going on otherwise.
Still has that clue token as well. Remember, stacking a clue will give him a 3rd energy if he needs it.
And a fresh card.
But it looks like Jacob's going to go back to the Eldrazi. Here's that same copy of Emrakul.
Yeah, it's smart to think about what your other options are, spend some time mapping out your turn, though it's generally going to be the case that you want to be promising the end of the game.
And this means he'll control Gerry's next turn. Gerry has 3 creatures. Baugh may just be able to kill all of them.
Attune with the Aether, Baugh going back to 4 energy, getting close to spinning that Marvel again. Maybe get a second Servant of the Conduit.
That's what we want to get every time. But here it may be enough. He will exile away the second Always Watching, and therefore losing his Nahiri. But here is some pretty good gets this game. She exiled a Spell Queller and 2 Always Watchings.
Yeah, now that both Always Watchings are off the table, combat's just a lot easier. That Inspector gets eaten by Servant of the Conduit. The Rabble gets eaten by Emrakul. Reflector Mage eaten by Ishkana.
Gerry shows Port Town, sees he's going to lose his whole board to the Mindslaver, and concedes the game. So it is Jacob Baugh, again getting it done in Standard with Naya Aetherworks. He's up 1-0 over Gerry Thompson.
Yeah. Baugh definitely a lot of success with this deck.
All right, so we're going to look at the sideboards for each player. We'll start with Gerry Thompson. He's got 3 Lantern Scouts, 3 Ceremonious Rejection, 3 Spell Shrivel, 3 Gideon Allies Zendikar, 2 Fragmentize, and an Island.
The 3 Spell Shrivel are great. They can counter the Marvel, and they can counter all the large creatures up the chain. Ceremonious Rejection counters both Marvel and Emrakul. This card's also pretty dang good. There's some argument for 1 or 2 Fragmentize just to deal with the Marvel. As we saw, the Marvel kind of lingered in that game. Sometimes you're able to catch them where they cast it and they don't have the requisite energy. You just destroy it right away. And sometimes 1 activation isn't good enough, so that's all reasonable. Probably bring in the Island because you're bringing in all these blue spells.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting because Jacob Baugh's Marvel that game didn't do all that much. He tapped it twice and he found an Ishkana and a Servant of the Conduit. This is good, but not great.
Yeah. Mostly the fact that you can counter the 13-13 aspect of Emrakul with a rejection.
All right, so Jacob Baugh with Naya Aetherworks 2 weeks ago was the Season 3 Invitational winner, which means he now has his likeness on a token. It's one of the rewards here. And we have the Jacob Baugh Energy Reserve token. This, of course, is Jacob Baugh, your player from Team Card Hoarder, using this to summon all sorts of creatures through the Aetherworks.
Spirit Bomb.
Pretty excellent there. Those will be given away starting at our first open of the year. It's the 3rd weekend in January, and they ship in all orders from StarCityGames.com beginning on the following Monday, January 25th at noon Eastern Time.
This might replace my foil Rainbow Energy as my energy reserve token.
All right, so we see Gerry's sideboard, and then we look at Jacob Baugh's. He's got a lot more one-ofs. He's got a Fragmentize, a Nissa Vital Force, an Ulamog, a Sigarda, that's the 2nd one, an Ishkana, that would be the 4th one, a Clipwings, a Worldbreaker, 2 Kozilek's Return, 2 Tireless Tracker, and 4 Galvanic Bombardment. That's where I'm interested.
Yeah, he's going to want to be converting into more of kind of a mid-rangey control deck. So all these removal spells are great to slow Gerry down. You make it so you're not under any duress. These bombardments, the Kozilek's Returns, those slow Gerry down a lot. You'll also want to be casting these Iskanas and the Sigardas. We saw those were very impactful in that matchup. Probably just bring in Tireless Tracker because you see that Gerry is bringing in a lot of counter spells. So this 3-mana creature that generates value seems totally reasonable. It's a little bit weak to Reflector Mage, but the card is still excellent.
So for Jacob Baugh, we really learned of who he was. He'd won an Open actually this year with Rally, but his best finish of the year had just got to be that Season 3 Invitational. He was the Atlanta winner. The 27-year-old team card hoarder player from Waterloo, Illinois. He won the Atlanta Invitational, posted an excellent record in 2016, and has been really just one of the, kind of in like almost a Joe Lissette philosophy of the pick a deck, pick a good deck, play it rain or shine, get really good at your 3 decks style player. You know, we've seen lands and Legacy. I talked with him here. He's been playing lands since before Thespian Stage was printed. He was one of those guys who try to kill you with a Barbarian Ring.
He owns Legacy lands, and every copy is in Japanese. There's no way that he just happened upon this deck.
Yeah, so, you know, he said he knows how to win the games when they're grindy. He knows how to win them when they're combo decks. Did well in Legacy with that deck. Modern Dredge, Jacob Baugh, one of the real innovators of that one, too. Scourge Devil, I think something you can definitely just attribute to a Jacob Baugh innovation to the deck. And now Naya Aetherworks. These are all great decks. These are multiple tournaments in each format with these ones.
Several players in this tournament, they were focusing very heavily on metagaming properly. Jacob Baugh, he's just going to play the decks that he knows how to play. He says, I think these decks are very good. I think that I can play all of these decks well, and that's really what matters. I'm not going to try to outthink myself.
You know, and you see so much value. For example, yesterday, we had a player with a great legacy, with a great modern set of results, Brad Carpenter, try to mix things up for the Players' Championship playing Grixis Delver, and it really just backfired on him. You know, he was one of the first players eliminated, didn't win a match with Grixis Delver. That's just something which I don't think Jacob Baugh would ever do.
No. Carpenter was really concerned that people were gunning for Infect so aggressively, and he spent a little bit of time working on Grixis Delver. He did play it in a Modern Classic previously, and he's been working with Kevin Jones, though. The deck is just very difficult audibling in a format as large and diverse as Modern or Legacy. It can often be a very punishing decision.
Yeah, so Baugh now up a game on Gerry Thompson. Now, if you want to talk about someone who's definitely willing to play a different deck at every tournament, Gerry Thompson, the 32-year-old from Minnesota, 22 Open top 8s, 5 wins, 7 Invitational top 8s, 2 wins. Talking about deck selection, Gerry Thompson's the only player I know on the when we had our opens every single weekend who would win an open, win every round of an open, and then show up next week with a completely different deck.
Yeah.
You'd be like, Gerry, you didn't even lose a game. Why'd you change decks? He's like, oh, this one's better now.
The Gerry Thompson notebook it's like a relic in the world of Magic. Just being able to see those notes would be so beneficial to the average Magic player.
See, I don't know about you. Every time I've won a tournament with a deck, I'll just play it until I start losing horribly.
I frequently put up a min cash in a tournament, and I don't want to put my deck down.
Yeah, as long as you're like, I won a match, we're good.
I top 32'd with Delver. Delver must be great.
Definitely different styles here from the two players. Now, on our backup match, we do have our first result here. This is the wild card match between Caleb Shear and Liam Lonergan. The winner of that one, that's going to be Caleb Shear. He moves on to the quarterfinals.
All right. Lonergan's sideboard didn't really come into play there.
Attune with the Aether, turn 1 from Jacob Baugh. He's under some pressure, though, for Gerry Thompson. He starts out the game on the Town Gossip Monger.
You know, now as we are in the sideboarded games, Baugh is going to have more answers to this. So Gerry is able to transform the Gossip Monger, then suddenly you don't die to the first Galvanic Bombardment, you don't die to the front side of Kozilek's Return. You can still tag it with Harness Lightning.
Well, Gerry does play a second creature, kind of. It's Smuggler's Copter. This is an interesting dynamic, right? You want to flip the Town Gossip Monger, but if you don't, the Town Gossip Monger will drive a Smuggler's Copter. There's a lot of different ways this is pulling.
Right. Smuggler's Copter, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that it is a better card than Town Gossip Monger.
Ooh, 2-3 for 1 and 3-3 for 2.
I probably care a little bit more about my Smuggler's Copter than my Town Gossip Monger.
All right, so Copter's the second play as he hits Baugh down to 19. And it's just going to be Vessel of Nascency for Jacob Baugh. He'll build up his board and his graveyard.
And with Baugh just leaving up white mana here, Gerry doesn't have to be concerned about too much. Baugh's not representing the ability to cast a Galvanic Bombardment.
Yeah, that's part of the sideboard plan for Baugh. 4 copies of Galvanic Bombardment, 2 copies of Kozilek's Return. And I like this from Gerry Thompson. It's going to be Thalia, Heretic Cathar. He'll play her.
Thalia is pretty excellent in this matchup if he's able to fade a Kozilek's Return on the 3rd turn here. Baugh's deck's pretty flush with basic lands, so he should be able to make his lands enter the battlefield untapped, though this card hoses Ishkana pretty significantly.
So Thalia crews the Copter. Town Gothmonger Copter attack for 4. And this is the interesting. Gerry goes ahead and discards his Revolutionary rebuff. This is the kind of card that actually I would have thought had been good on this board.
So basically, when you have the Thalia and you have this much pressure, you're not concerned about Ishkana because you're just going to beat that card.
Right, because all the Ishkana and the spiders come into play tapped.
Exactly.
So you get an extra turn.
The thing that stops you is if Baugh just has Kozilek's Return on this turn, but he's tapped out. He can't cast rebuff. Probably just going to lose this game if that happens anyway.
All right, so if we can't counter the one spell we need and the other spell doesn't matter, well, we'll just get rid of the counter spell.
Exactly.
Makes a lot of sense. Go to Jacob's turn. It's going to be Attune with the Aether, up to 4 energy, finding a basic mountain. Assume he has another land here, though, if he wants to crack that Vessel.
Right. Just plains up right now. Though he has shown a forest.
There's the basic forest. And he's going to go ahead and pass. These Naya Aetherworks decks, they are so powerful, but on the first few turns of the game, they can do a bunch of nothing.
Yeah, and once again, Gerry does not have to be concerned about a removal spell in combat. Green-white just won't produce that in Baugh's list.
Back to Thompson. Thalia, Gossipmonger, and Copter are in play. He's gotten Baugh down to 15. I do really like what Gerry's deck is doing now. I'm not sure he'll ever get around to transforming this Gossipmonger. But this play, and this is one of the biggest reasons to play white in Standard, on turn 4, Gerry Thompson's going to cast Gideon Ally of Zendikar. And I know you're just a huge fan of this card.
The Mighty Muscle Mage. One of the best Planeswalkers ever printed. I don't know why they would make this a white card, but anyway, it is excellent.
Why is this not blue?
Right. The good ones are supposed to be blue, red, and or black.
So Gideon brings along an ally. The ally crews the Copter. The Copter, the Thalia, the Gossipmonger attack. This is a total of 7. And Baugh is just going to go ahead and crack his Vessel. And that's not helping him either. Finds Harnessed Lightning and some lands.
And now Gerry really doesn't care about a Kozilek's Return. He just has a Gideon.
Right, he can just plus it.
I will say...
can I say I love that this Gossipmonger was... Gerry never even thought about transforming it.
1 mana, 1/1. Some other people are casting Stern Constable in the Standard. This is just a playable Magic card.
Jacob takes a land. We go to his turn here. Too little, too late, it's going to look like. He draws Harnessed Lightning. He has options of Harnessed Lightning and Nahiri, but he's at 8, and Gerry's board's flush with cards.
It looks like Baugh does have a Galvanic Bombardment in hand. That one's way too little, too late.
Yeah, he'll scoop up the cards. Gerry Thompson winning game 2. And, that game here, that is what I was concerned about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Baugh's deck just has a lot of air going on. Sometimes his deck just doesn't do much of anything. The Marvel deck, it is quite consistent for what it is. When Aetherworks Marvel was spoiled, there was a lot of concern. Can you actually even activate this card?
Yeah.
What do I have to do to my deck? And it is a pretty consistent deck, but it can just do nothing.
Okay, so I want to go back to the sideboard then. So after watching that game play out, if I'm Jacob Baugh, I'm looking at any card that costs less than 4 mana. I'm going to say, okay, Fragmentize, Clip Wings. Like, Ryan, can we board in any of these? I just don't want to get run over.
Yep, those kill flyers. Fragmentize kills Smuggler's Copter.
Both those cards only kill Smuggler's Copter? Maybe we don't care and play them anyway?
Yeah, you definitely play Clip Wings. It kills Spell Queller.
Oh, yeah, he even has another flyer.
Yeah, Gerry's not representing any Archangel Avacins that you would see in a lot of blue-white decks, but he has enough flyers where I'd play Clipwings. But yeah, definitely just going to be pretty mid-range. As we saw there, he lost the game that he would have been competitive in if he had these mid-range elements. His bombardment was too late, didn't have multiple copies, didn't have much in the way of interactive spells. So the more that Jacob's deck is doing its proactive thing, the less that what he's doing matters. These reactive spells are really what he needs in this matchup.
Yeah, if he gets to 4 or 5 mana, any of his cards will do.
Right.
All right, so this match, we're going to go to game number 3 between Baugh and Thompson. The player on the play has won both of them. That's going to be Baugh for game 3. We'll see if he can hold serve. Looking at our standings, though, and this is a big one, the winner of this game will move on to face the overall 1 seed of the tournament. It would be Brad Nelson. Now, we did mention the 5-12 matchup, number 5 winning 2-0. It's going to be Caleb Shear moving on to the quarterfinals where he's going to face Jeff Hoagland in Standard.
Yep. Hoagland was our runner-up in the Player of the Year race. Definitely looking to convert and be the Players' Champion.
And if you didn't see Hoagland's deck, and what's it? My 2 favorite deck designers here at the Players' Championship, we had Todd Stevens and Jeff Hoagland. Hoagland's doing it again in Standard, playing blue-red Dynavolt Tower. I will admit, if you aren't familiar with the card Flame Lash, which you might not be because it's one of the supplemental Standard cards, Jeff Hoagland playing that this weekend.
Why did you segue away from Dynavolt Tower? Let's just talk about Dynavolt Tower.
He's only playing 2 of them. But one of the things that, and this is what I like, Jeff hates losing to combo decks. Just hates it. And one thing it's whenever I've played against him, I give him this, is that even real look, where it'll be, I'll be playing Storm and I'll be like, well, Jeff, what do you have against Storm? He's like, well, he'll have 4 Canonists and 2 Rule of Laws. And I'll just be like, what are you? Like, how is that real? Okay, Jeff, this weekend, 4 summary dismissals.
Wow.
4 summary dismissals. He does not want to lose to Aetherworks Marvel.
He doesn't want to get Emerald.
But you think about that matchup. Look at this. That matchup, Caleb Shear is going to have to beat that. A blue counterspell deck with 4 summaries.
I will say that I have played Standard decks with 3 dismissals in the sideboard. Marvel costs 4 mana.
All right, you can just ramp it out.
Your other counterspells matter a lot. So we'll see, how he supplements that matters.
Jeff's style, I love it though. In this, when he does targeted deck building, it is not subtle what he's trying to beat.
No.
All right, but going to this game, the winner of this, of course, will face number 1 seed Gerry Thompson. Will it be Jacob Baugh? Or number 1 seed Brad Nelson rather? Will it be Jacob Baugh or will it be Gerry Thompson?
Yeah, winning this is. It feels good to win matches of Magic, certainly a tournament of this size, but that's a hard pull for the next match.
Baugh going to go down to 6 cards very quickly here. So over at StarCityGames.com, we are running, of course, our weekly sale. This is Different Things in Sale on the SCG store every single week. Different deals. So this week we have been running up to 50% off different select standard singles. So cards like Aetherworks Marvel and Chandra Torch of Defiance you see here, both in Baugh's deck. This sale ends tomorrow at 11 in the morning. So pick up your standard cards while they are cheap and check in again tomorrow for next week's sale. StarCityGames.com. After some thought, Jerry's decided that he's going to join Jacob on a 6-card hand.
Yeah, he looked a little bit pensive. I couldn't tell if it was just regular Jerry things or if he was actually concerned about his hand. But yeah, going to 6. He's never a player that looks terribly enthused about his opener.
It is what it is.
I drew the cards in my deck.
Would certainly be a battle of the Titans if Gerry moves on here. Both Gerry Thompson and Brad Nelson, 2 of the more dominant players here on the tour.
With Baugh on the play, with both players taking a mulligan in post-sideboard games, I believe that the mulligans generally advantage Baugh. Post-sideboard with his interactive spells, there's a lot more pressure on Jerry's hand to come together properly. Baugh both has the ability to proactively assemble his Marvel. He's on the play. You can start spinning that potentially on turn 4. And if he just draws removal spells, that's pretty great here.
Gerry Thompson going to go to 5 cards here. There is, at least though with Jerry's deck, a lower fail rate. Like, sometimes Baugh's deck has to keep 6s that are missing a piece. Say he's got Attune, a land, and a marvel. You know, maybe attune 2 lands and a marvel on the play. He's going to keep it every time.
Sure, and he has some hands that are crutching on a Vessel of Nascency, finding a piece, which is consistent.
Right.
You look at 4 extra cards, but you don't always find it.
They're good keeps, but they miss. For
Right.
Gerry Thompson, you give him a Plains and a Town Gossip Monger, and he's probably already keeping.
Savannah Lions does the same thing every time.
Right. And when you're on the aggro deck, playing in something like Jacob Baugh's deck, you're hoping that Jacob has kept a speculative 6, something that's missing a piece. If Jacob has, 3 lands, Servant, Marvel, Puzzle Knot, that's just going to be hard to beat.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Both players have kept now resolving their scry, so it's going to be Baugh on 6, Thompson on 5.
I think. Okay. Thompson's hand, he has Plains, Island, and 3 white spells. And I think he's thinking about a Thalia on the top of his deck. Because there's no guarantee you're able to cast it, but if you're able to curve into it, that one's pretty good.
So Baugh will start on Evolving Wilds for Thompson. It's going to be Plains, Town Gossip Monger. And kind of what I mentioned here, Gerry does not need much to start attacking.
This is a 1-mana 1/1. It will always be a 1-mana 1/1, except when it's a 2/3.
It's interesting. The only time we've seen it transform this match is when Jacob made it happen.
True.
Gerry's never chosen to make it.
No, it had to. It was too busy going to school to get its pilot's license to be out mobbing.
See, when you're an easily excited person, you could become rabble, and that's just no good. Instead, you could get a pilot's license, you could get an education, and you'll find you'll always stay civilized.
You could fly a helicopter. You could be flying a helicopter.
Shows the importance of a strong educational background.
Discipline.
Baugh getting a basic forest. It looks like, though, his hand not as speculative as Gerry Thompson might have wanted. That Evolving Wilds was his only green source, but now that Jacob has found it, you see his next turn can set up for something as easy as Attune with the Aether, Galvanic Bombardment. He'll go with Vessel of Nascency, leaving up the red for the bombardment. But good either way.
Right.
Thompson picking up an island here. If he can't beat Baugh on the curve-out game, then Gerry's going to need a card like Gideon.
Yeah, he's going to need Gideon and/or a handful of counter spells. And currently, Baugh hasn't really done a lot, and even if Baugh has a lot of removal spells, if Gerry can just counter every Ishkana that shows up, every copy of Aetherworks Marvel, he can suddenly get to a point where maybe he can out-top deck Baugh.
Gerry's going to try for Thalia's Lieutenant here, but Baugh is at the ready with a Galvanic Bombardment, and what looked to be a great play for Gerry now just becomes a 1/1.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those bombardments are just so important in these post-sideboard games.
If Baugh didn't have that bombardment, how much different would this game look right now? What Gerry would have, it would be a 2/2 Gozamonger transforming into a 3/4. It would be attacking every turn. Ugh.
Yeah. Gerry does still have the Lieutenant, though he can't really cast humans into it and leave up his counter magic. He needs to get some more land drops out here first.
Yeah. Baugh's plotting forward. Forest Attune finds him another forest. He's going to be able to play it, crack a vessel. Things are going well for Baugh. He's going to find another mountain, correct?
Yeah, sometimes you want to cast 2 red spells in a turn.
Yeah, so Chandra, Torch of Defiance, still in the deck for Baugh.
Right, also a good one. The white splash is pretty light. It's just Nihiris and Sigardas.
Just 2 basic mountains and that one of plains.
Of course, once the deck draws 1 Aether Hub, all of these things are rather trivial.
Aether Hub, yeah, so strong in this deck. You even see it being used to pay for things like Ishkana activations. It's a deck that has no natural black mana.
Mm-hmm.
So now we get to see the rest of Jacob's hand. We see the mountain he got, a forest, so he has lands 3 and 4. Last cards are a second vessel and a copy of Ishkana Graph Widow. So with that spell shrivel in Gerry's hand, he may be able to keep pace here.
He's going to need to make a 3rd land drop.
Ooh, and that's going to be tougher. So Gerry's going to play Expedition Envoy. Because it's a human, it will turn Lieutenant into a 2/2. Thompson will attack, putting Baugh down to 18, and that may be the whole turn, and it is. Baugh now going to try to make the most of this. He goes ahead and uses the Vessel of Nascency. It already gives him his 4th card type. He's guaranteed to have Delirium. And a pretty good selection. He gets Tireless Tracker or Servant of the Conduit here. I don't think that Baugh would mind having, well, either of these cards. They both look pretty great.
Yep. Either one of these are fine. The Tracker is more likely to be able to trade with the Lieutenant on the following turn.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I like the Tracker here as well, and so does Baugh. He'll go ahead and take it. He has the 4th land in hand already. This is just a very attractive option.
Yeah, and if he has some other answer to Lieutenant, then it's kind of a non-issue, and the Tracker is just a better card because it generates more value.
And now he's going to have to make a decision. He drew a copy of Chandra, Torch of Defiance here, so Tracker or Chandra, both seem great.
Does have Ishkana as well. I do like trying to get some control of the board before you cast the Chandra. You don't want to just -3 it and then have it die in combat.
And that's what's going to happen. He plays Tireless Tracker, plays that mountain he was holding onto, gets a clue token, and passes back to Gerry Thompson. And for Thompson, he hopes to draw the land, but instead he draws another 3. It's a copy of Spellqueller.
His hand is filling up with uncastables.
He has an Expedition, so his hand, Expedition Envoy, that's castable. The other 3 cards, Spell Shrivel, Spell Queller, and Gideon. He's going to need lands 3 and 4 on the following turns to have any chance here.
And even then, might be too late. I don't believe that Baugh currently has a 5th land drop lined up, but even with what he has, just casting Chandra is pretty solid.
Well, when things look bad, oftentimes the play is to just attack. That's what Jerry's going to do. He'll play the Envoy, swing with his 2/1 Envoy and his 3/3 Lieutenant. It's offering to trade either of them with Baugh's Tracker. And after some thought, Baugh accepts. He trades the Lieutenant with his Tracker, takes 2, and goes to 16.
Yep. Baugh's deck is advantaged in the late game. I like aggressively trading there. Completely agree with that block.
Yeah. So it ends up being, what, a kill spell plus a clue? That's
Right.
pretty good. And how about this? Ishkana, Graph Widow. She's going to bring along 3 spiders. And that Spell Shrivel that was in Jerry's hand, it had Ishkana written on it, but it's not going to get the job done. And Gerry scoops up the cards. That's going to be the match. So, Jacob Baugh, 2-1. He is your winner. He eliminates Gerry Thompson. And once again, for Baugh, Naya Aetherworks is just performing for him. He'll move on to the quarterfinals to face Brad Nelson.